All right. This is Scare Talk. I am Danny, and I am here with Crazy Katrina.
Yes, it got crazy.
And we are here for a special episode. It's an interview episode for the upcoming film, Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. It is going to be in theaters in the U.S. on January 13th, 14th, and 15th. So you're going to want to go check that out. And today we have Peter Pan himself, Martin Portlock. How you doing, Martin?
Hey, how you, Danny? Hi, Katrina. How are you?
Hello.
Hi. All right. And then we also have Tinkerbell, Kit Green.
Hello.
Hey, Kit.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Kit.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. So we just watched the film recently, and we have some questions for you guys regarding your performances and what inspired you to audition, and maybe about some of the content of the movie without getting into spoilers or anything like that. So first of all, I've seen it twice. I loved it. I don't know that it's for everybody. It's pretty heavy. It's a horror film. This is scary stuff, hard to watch kind of stuff.
Wants to come to Neverland with me.
But very well acted, very well executed, and you guys did an amazing job in your roles. So I wanted to praise that before we get started. What do you think, Katrina?
Yeah, I mean, I would go with that. It was I would say hard to watch, but that kind of gives credit to how well it was done.
Yeah.
I don't know because I've not seen it yet.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
well, you were in it,
no
so
spoilers, please, guys. No spoilers for us, thanks.
Yeah. Well, and the biggest thing that came to my mind is for me how hard it was like to see some of the things happening. I'm curious, how hard was it to be those people to have to play that role?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so Martin, let's start with you.
Yeah, okay. I mean, obviously, everyone knows and loves the character of Peter Pan. It's been passed down through the ages. But this particular take on Peter Pan completely flipped it on its head. And we're talking about a murderer. We're talking about a child kidnapper. Passive aggressive, controlling, they're all the elements in a human being that no one ever wants to see, and to try and bring that to the surface and embody that was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done. I wouldn't say there was particularly any influence from outside, even though there's been a lot of talk. I've seen a lot of talk of people saying, "Oh, he's like this," or "He's like this," "He's like this," but really, you had to kind of hone in those kind of emotions and that state of mind. Myself, a lot of the preparation for that character was looking at myself, because I've said this before. I'm a father of 3. I have 3 children.
Oh wow!
I've got a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 16-year-old. So I've got a nice range of children. And it's more about how would I feel if someone like Peter Pan came and did those things with my children. Although it's a horrendous thing to think about.
Yeah.
But it was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done, career-wise.
I can understand that.
What about you, Kit? How was it difficult?
I was reflecting that I think Martin and I we talked quite a lot during the filming, and I think we had a great deal of empathy for the things that the other was going through, because Martin was very worried about like how was I, and the terrible things his character was doing to my character, and how did that feel, and was I okay, and was I safe? And I was like, you're doing all these awful things, are you okay having to do those? And And so they're two very different things. I mean, Tinkerbell also
Yeah.
does all the things, but for different reasons. So yeah, I think we had a lot of concern for each other and a lot of support for each other in our different roles.
Yeah.
But
I
that was
love
lovely
that.
though, because it was such a safe environment for us all. We could all trust each other 100%. That we were all good. We were all on the same page.
Yeah,
it was nice.
and which was good, because it was, of course it was tough. And Martin and I definitely talked about what was going on in the relationship between our two characters, because that's obviously really deep. And that was one of the things for me initially was, I was so blown away by the fact that this is really a script about a coercive control relationship, and that's not what I expected to be reading. I think that's really so resonant and important. And so we talked about that to some degree, as much as we could. I mean, there's some things that are just really hard to do. To let kids be smacked across a room. It's like it's pretty intense.
Yeah. That's cool to hear. That you guys were like kind of checking in with each other, like, is this okay? How you feel about that? Because it's a rough relationship that you guys display on screen, and some of those scenes are physically demanding too. So that's kind of hard to see, but very important to the story. So
I love that you guys checked in with each other, and I'm so happy to know that. As I'm sitting here and looking at you, Kit, I'm like, oh, I feel so bad. I can't believe what you've been through. And
so I'm an artist. I make a lot of work. I direct a lot of things. And I already had this relationship with a well-being coordinator. Like, I talk to her regularly. I talk to her from my work when I'm in charge, when I'm directing and stuff. And I realized, I'm going to need to talk about this. And so I talked to Martin, and so I was very lucky to be supported. I'm glad that I had access to that, but I hadn't realized that maybe, it was just a bit late before I was like, oh, hang on a minute, there's a lot. But I think it's definitely worth it. And I think because this is a psychological drama, really, of course it's a horror film, there's no doubt about that, but a lot of aspects of it are psychological drama, and I think that's really satisfying.
There was I'll tell you a little story. So obviously Peter Pan in this, he's horrible to children, but one of the most highlights of the whole movie for me was working with those kids. We were always having fun in between takes. So it'd go horrible, serious, and then suddenly we'd all be messing around. And I don't know if you've seen it somewhere, and there probably will be after the film's released as well. It's a picture of Peter Pan led down in a massive school photo with all the children from the school behind him. And we had such a great time on set outside that school, where the kids were coming up to me and offering me Oreos and a drink. And I'd sit there with them, having a chat about acting and eating, little cakes and stuff. It was just wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I love that.
I like to see that softer, happy side of.
I'll have to try and find you the photo, and I'll forward it to
you. Yeah. Hopefully there'll be some. I know with these special releases, there's some behind the scenes stuff that kind of gets added in for the end of the film or something like that, or the beginning. So maybe maybe Scott will throw something like that in there. That's awesome. Something that I've noticed with interviewing some of these horror villains who do horrendous things on screen, they tend to be the nicest people in their personal lives. It's really, really interesting how opposite a person can be from what you see on screen. So
that's why I love it. That's why I was so drawn to this script. It was something that was a challenge. It was a character that I wasn't sure if I could play it. I took months trying to develop the twitches and the stillness and the moments and the thought processes behind the eyes and stuff like that. It was so difficult to try and achieve. But I enjoy a challenge.
Yeah,
Right.
I thought I was going to have that challenge because when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, I really want to be really scary. And that's what Scott kind of initially responded to. And then he was like, I really want to make Tink something else. And then we just kept we evolved it. And then I was like, oh, I don't really get, I do get a little bit of being scary with the kids.
Mhm.
So yeah, I do get to do that, but I've still yet to have my moment. So that will happen. I'm putting it out there. I want to be really,
Okay.
Oh.
I want to do the total dark side.
Okay, all right. I'd be
Okay.
interested to see what happens there. And how
She's a
that
dark horse.
physically works.
No, I do. I'd love to really play with that. I've never really had a chance to do it.
Okay, awesome. And so Kit, Martin was talking about preparing for a few months. Did you have to do those types of things?
I had a really satisfying unfolding really with Scott, because Scott, while he was writing the script, he had instincts about what to do with Tinkerbell, and he was very sweet and said, I absolutely, it needs to be you, and I just want to check that you're comfortable with this and that this is okay to do, just in terms of like the community, like is this okay to represent a character in this way, is this okay with like the story? And I suggested a few things. And so I really understood, I felt I understood what he was trying to do with the character before we actually got on set. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for that. It felt like a real collaboration between us. And that was great. Cool. There was no sense of like, oh, I feel a bit uncomfortable saying that, or that's a bit exploitative, or, any of that. Like, I really stood by what was in the script by the time it was a script. And so that really, so in a way I got that sort of that special help with the preparation.
Okay. I was
really
gonna ask you about that, because you yourself are trans, and the aspect of that is within the film. I was wondering how you kind of handled those things. So that's really cool that you were involved in the creative process there.
Yeah, definitely. And the writing of the scene with Tinkerbell, with her father, and the glimpses that you get of the character as a child, and how that was discussed. Yeah, that was important. And it's a great, honestly, it's such a great idea. It doesn't feel exploitative at all. It feels really rich, emotionally rich. That Peter Pan sort of like found himself in this situation with this boy who wasn't a boy, and then what happens, and then all of the depths, and we don't really know what went on between them. But
right,
it's so unexpected, and that feels like there are so many brilliant trans storylines that could be happening, and that aren't. And this is a great example of that, where it just adds complexity and human richness to a story. So I was excited to be part of that.
Okay, awesome. So Martin, one of my favorite things, and just in horror in general, I feel like a villain who talks has to have a really cool voice. And really like a scary voice.
I don't always talk like that, It's not, I think if I did, my kids would never, ever, ever want to come upstairs and greet me again. The voice was, it was a decision. How does one speak to children when you're trying to be a horrible guy that wants to be a nice guy, to try and lure them in, if you like, or play with their mind. So Peter Pan has got, he doesn't want to grow up. He wants to be a little boy forever, but he kind of knows he isn't, and it makes him angry. It makes him hateful towards all those that are, but at the same time, he wants to protect the ones that are youthful in his own way, which is very corrupt and twisted. It's a massive spider web of emotions and thought processes. So he puts on this childlike voice. Would you like to come to Neverland with me? And there's this kind of horrible kind of wanting to connect with this child in that voice. But when he's himself, and you know, he's kind of, would you like to come to Neverland with me? Kind of this horrible kind of reality, you know, and when the children hear that, they know they're not in a safe space anymore. And I think you needed to have that contrast. You needed to have that contrast to hit home.
Yeah.
And trigger those emotions.
Yeah. I think that's what I liked most about The Voice is how much you changed it throughout, and it went with the scene.
Yes, it depends on what he was doing and who he was talking to.
Yeah, and then when he had the like boy mask on and the little boy voice, and then I'm a boy.
The angry, the shout was that was scared the hell out of a lot of people. So there's a scene where I'm banging against a door, trying to get through a door that Wendy's locked, I think, without too many big spoilers, because not really a big spoiler, but you can hear me banging against the door, right? And I'm shouting, I'm trying to get through. Scott, when we were filming that, was the other side of the door, and he was having chills, and he was like, oh my god, he's gonna break through, and all this kind of stuff. And we filmed that, and it was truly horrendous. Like, you know, it wasn't just sound afterwards done. I was actually smashing on that door trying to get through. It was good.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's, you know, when filmmaking, like, that's my favorite type of filmmaking with horror, is when it's, you know, genuinely happening on screen. There isn't a lot of post-production sounds and things like that, because if you're not the greatest at that, it can really come through and be obvious in the movie. Like when someone does a voiceover and, you know, it doesn't really match their lips very very
it's very intricate, isn't it? It's got its pros and cons. Like and I think Kit would relate to this. There were several times where Kit would be led on a cold, hard floor, you know, covered in this blood, and it was cold.
That day, those days,
and that was hard.
They were hard days, but you know, it was. I mean, the whole thing in Peter's house was tough. You know, it was cold and it was dirty. It had been empty for decades. You know, none of that was fake.
It was no studio. Like, the set wasn't studio. It was all in one building. It was amazing.
You guys found quite a location.
It's an amazing location, and we were dirty. I was dirty for weeks. It was not a lot of makeup.
Ironically, I think it was in an old school. I think
it was an old school. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. There were in some of the rooms that weren't for filming. There were kind of like, you know, things written on the walls and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That is pretty ironic.
They had a clock tower. You didn't see this in the film or anything, but there's a little clock tower on there. And if you go up there in the stairs, and there's scratch marks on the wall, and we learned that that's where the teachers back then used to put the kids when they were in detention. And they used to try and scratch to try and, you know, because they'd be left up there.
That place was dark.
It was dark.
Oh my god!
It was very fitting for the movie, but it was a real kind of dark.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Wow!
Even in the bathrooms were tiny, like children's toilets.
Yeah.
So it was we were very method.
Yeah.
Wow!
And the basement in that building was used during the war, during the Second World War, as a morgue.
Oh my gosh!
Random, but
I never.
Wait, Kit, did you know this?
No, I didn't go.
No.
So it's like haunted.
Oh my gosh!
For the scenes that were down in that cellar,
I had a hard enough time. I didn't need to add to it.
Sorry.
Man,
we're going to go to the premiere. We're going to watch this film and then go away for 3 months of PTSD.
Yeah.
You guys might need to take a break. So I don't know if you guys can say, I'll ask anyways. This is a whole universe, you know, the poohniverse. So you know, we've seen 3 films. So there was, you know, Winnie the Pooh part 1, Blood and Honey part 2, and then Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, which will be the next film coming out. And you know, and then there's multiple other films that we know of that are coming out, and then the culmination can we expect to see either of you in those or in the poohniverse Monsters Assemble?
It's been discussed, and it's
okay.
Both our characters are in.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot going on in that film.
I imagine.
We don't know any specifics, but there's going to be a lot.
I was speaking to Scott the other day, and they were talking a little bit about Poohniverse, and I just wander up to him and I say, "Hey, what's this about then?" And he goes, "Oh, I can't wait for your scenes with Tigger." I was like, "Wait, what? What? I go, what?" So that's it.
Okay.
He did that with me with another character, and I was like, I can't imagine that, but okay, let's go.
Okay.
So, when I think about that, I think of like Freddy versus Jason, that film where you have the ultimate evil of Freddy.
Yeah.
And then you have someone like Jason who's, evil, of course, but they kind of use to get Freddy. And I can't imagine a darker, more evil character in this universe than Peter Pan. We'll see as we get through the other films. But I could see you being like that ultimate evil in that film.
I don't think Peter Pan can get any darker.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not just a killer. He's not just a slasher.
Yeah.
He's got a very deep sadistic motive.
Yeah.
With a delusional pattern of thinking that he's helping people. Yeah. But there's no one more dangerous. There is no one more dangerous, I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying that, but after that. But what I would say is that every film that within the TCU is very, very different. Pinocchio's filmed very differently to Peter Pan, and Peter Pan is very different to Blood and Honey 2.
Yeah.
All of these movies are very, very different style movies. So it will be really interesting to see how they connect them.
Yeah.
And see what kind of flavor film this Poohniverse is actually going to be like. But I have no doubt Scott and Reese are going to pull something out and just and surprise everyone yet again.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We interviewed some of the cast for the Bambi film. And so that one sounds interesting too. So we look forward to watching that one. We haven't seen any of it. All right. So our final questions.
Wait, but I have one more question before that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious, what is your love or relationship with the original Peter Pan? Did you guys grow up watching it? How do you feel about the characters of the original Peter Pan?
That's a great question.
Go on, Kit. You go first.
Yeah, I'm very suspicious of J.M. Barrie. I think that period of British history, it's all about empire and like the thrusting patriarchy and all this kind of stuff, and I think this is like the ultimate example of it. And to die will be an awfully big adventure. Like, what the hell? Like. Like that's your tagline.
Yeah, death's the only adventure. Wait.
I will be an awfully big adventure. All right then, and you've written this for children. Okay, like death is the thing that we all need to get our head around as human beings, and all of us fail. But you're using that as your hey, I've got an idea for a fun book. Death is that's an awfully big adventure. I think it's really weird. I definitely was taken to see it on stage loads as growing up. It's just part of what you see, and it's mainly you just think, oh my god, are those actors going to die because the flying is so bad, that kind of thing. So yeah, I suppose I felt quite ambivalent towards it really, and have no relationship with the Disney incarnation. So it was really good to go back to the original and say, whoa, this is already weird.
Yeah.
It was Disney that like was pulled the big one of like making it anodyne, because it was already weird. So it actually makes much more sense to make it into a horror movie than it does to make it into a bland children's cartoon. So
one of my favorite J.M. Barrie lines in the original screenplay was Hook when he's on the ship. He said, because I memorized this, hang on. He's on the ship and he's got a load of the kids there. They're all kind of chained up. He's kind of won the day and he's about to, do a horrible deed with these children. And he goes, "How still the night is. Nothing quite sounds alive. For now is the hour when the children in their homes are abed, their lips bright browned with the goodnight chocolate, with crumbs and their tongues drowsily searching their cheeks. But compare those children to the ones on this boat about to walk the plank." Now, I love that line because in that character and what Hook is saying from those original scripts is that he's not the bad guy. He understands what children should be like, but these kids are terrorists. They're going around killing people, living without consequence. I love that. And I grew up watching Robin Williams in Hook. I think a lot of us did at this age, and I loved the concept of Peter Pan being older, finding out there's another Neverland again. But it hasn't ruined anything for me. This movie has not ruined anything for me because a story has been told before. I don't think there is a story that exists in this world that has never been told. It's just always being retold in a different way. So many movies are identical, but it's just the way you tell them. It's just changed slightly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I love that. I agree with you, Kit. Like, it was already quite a dark story to start with, so this was the perfect direction to take it, rather than the Disney direction that so many of us grew up with.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we've not really talked about the fact that Wendy becomes the hero of the piece, and that feels very timely. And the connection between Wendy and Tinkerbell, as to protect children and fight against Peter Pan, that feels incredibly important and a real reaction to what was written in over 100 years ago. So that's very timely. And I think that is a genius move from Scott.
Yeah.
All right.
Now
So
let him ask the final.
So, what are some of your favorite horror films? Martin, let's start with you.
Okay, favorite horrors. I mean, I grew up watching Sam Raimi movies. I watched Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. That was actually probably one of the first. Evil Dead 2 was probably the very first one I ever watched. And I was kind of enthralled by it because of its uniqueness. It's got this very creative element. It's got a bit of humor in there, but it's gross and it's a bit scary and it's got a bit of everything in it. And the performances were wild and the sets were crazy and there was no CGI back then. Everything was kind of done physically, and I just that for me, that it was one of the inspirations of being growing up and starting to be creative, because I wanted to kind of recreate things like that.
Yeah.
So for me that those movies, I mean, obviously we all love Jaws. Now I know it's not really a horror, but it's certainly for me the thriller. And see, for me, a good movie is one that keeps the audience ticking and thinking. It's not necessarily. I think you see the shark like what for 15 minutes in that whole film. No, but the rest of the film has gripped you, because you're just constantly thinking, what if, what's under there? The fear's there already. So I love horror movies like that. They're my kind of favorites.
Okay.
Nice.
Awesome.
Do you have a favorite within the Evil Dead franchise?
I would probably say Evil Dead 2.
There you go.
Although the series was amazing, and it's a shame it got cancelled, but I actually really enjoyed the series.
Did you see the more recent one? The Evil Dead Rise.
Rise. I thought they really hit some original elements in that film.
Yeah.
And I was quite taken by surprise when I watched that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I did like that one. And they're doing another one, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right,
So,
Kit.
my turn. Okay, so I'm going to really let you down because I don't like horror films.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That happens sometimes with.
It does happen, and I was saying sort of somewhat cutely, like my life's tense. Just walking down the street is tense for me sometimes. So like I don't need to feel more tense, which is a cute line. But I think I've never really related to them. But as a maker, I'm really interested in the technicalness of it.
Mm.
A few years ago, I did make a sort of suspense play that was an immersive thing where it's a play that goes wrong and the play gets haunted and then it stops and then everyone goes backstage and then all sorts of terrible things happen. Because I was really interested in creating a suspense narrative, and I co-wrote it with a British novelist called Sarah Waters, who did Tipping the Velvet and a whole load of things. And we spent ages talking about the technicalities of it, with both of us hating watching horror films. So it was an interesting process.
Okay.
But so I don't choose to be made tense by films. But I'm very intrigued by how much people do love horror, and especially young people. You know what I mean? I think there's something very interesting going on creatively with people in their 20s and why they really, really love it so much.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated by that. And marginalized people, trans people are fascinated with horror, and I think, like I was saying earlier, to tell a trans story through a horror movie makes total sense. Everything's up for grabs. So I'm really interested in it creatively. I just choose not to be tense.
Yeah.
Well,
so what genres would you say that you
what do I like? My friend is a stand-up joke that the world divides into two groups, that people who like to see lots of people die very quickly, and the other group is people who like to watch one person die very slowly, and I'm much more in the terms of endearment camp.
all right.
Tragically dying of a disease with lots of tears. I'm so in that camp. But yeah, I just watched Wicked 4 times. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
But that's dark. But
Sure.
setting fire to an effigy of their best friends. So
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, I might warn. I mean, I want you to watch this movie, but I might warn you against it.
I was doing it. I watched. We had to go in to do some ADR, and I had like I don't know how much you had, Martin, but I had like a tiny bit to do, and then I had like 15 minutes of screaming, just wild screaming. And I was going on the only time we could find was the morning of my best friend's wedding, so I was in a beautiful outfit with a little fascinating screaming in a booth, which was great. And then the editor said, "Hey, you're here for an hour. Do you want to watch some scenes?" And I watched 2 that I was in, and then I was like, "I've got a wedding to go to. I'm just going to go
now."
Amazing.
I don't need to watch it, darling. I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. All right, cool. Well, it was great to meet you guys. Great to talk with you. We love the movie. We look forward to seeing it in theaters. It'll be a great theater experience. And we might have to watch something happy after seeing it in theaters. But yeah, so thank you so much for coming on. I definitely recommend everybody to go see it. If you're a horror fan, it doesn't get much more horror than this. So
yeah.
So thank you guys again.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Great to meet you.
All right.
All right. This has been Scare Talk. Oh, sleep tight.
Don't let Peter Pan bite.